On this front, winter is a weapon, hunger is a strategy, mercy is a crime. Between Berlin and Moscow, more people will die than on any other battlefield of the war, in a place where war and murder slowly become the same thing. Today we open the sealed file on the Eastern Front. Hitler versus Stalin, the bloodiest front they don't teach you in school. Picture a yellowed map on a wooden table, cigarette burns at the corners. Two signatures slash across Europe, one from Berlin, one from Moscow. Rivals, mirror images, quietly agreeing to carve up the countries in between like thieves dividing a city. In public, they talk about peace. In private, they are already drawing lines where entire nations will disappear. It begins with a handshake in the shadows. In 1939, German and Soviet officials sign a secret deal that slices Eastern Europe into spheres of influence, a polite phrase for conquest. Poland is smashed from both sides, the Baltic states swallowed, and behind the moving front lines, both regimes are already filling prisons, trains, and execution pits. But this marriage of monsters was never meant to last. At dawn one summer morning, engines roar to life. Three giant invasion groups roll east, millions of troops, thousands of tanks, a storm of steel crossing the border in a single day. Orders filter down the chain. This is not a normal war. Villages are to be burned. Political enemies are to be shot on sight. Prisoners are to be treated as less than human. On the other side, Stalin rules through fear of his own. His officers know that retreat can mean a bullet from behind, not just one from the enemy in front. Here, soldiers are trapped between two commanders who see them less as men and more as expendable pieces on a board. Now imagine a city trapped in ice. A great northern city is cut off, its roads severed, its food stores dwindling every day. The enemy surrounds it, but does not rush in. They prefer to let the cold and hunger do the work. Inside, families trade furniture for firewood. Bread rations shrink to thin slices that barely cover a palm. People collapse in the snow, waiting in line for food. Sometimes, no one has the strength to move the bodies away. At night, the city is almost silent. Far out on the frozen horizon, artillery thunders. Closer in, you hear only the creak of ice, the shuffle of worn boots, and radios whispering slogans that insist everything is under control. Further south, on a river that cuts through an industrial city bearing a dictator's name, another nightmare takes shape. Here, factories and apartment blocks become fortresses. Stairwells, broken windows, piles of bricks. Each one is a battleground where men fight at arm's length, seeing the whites of each other's eyes before they pull the trigger. Shells tear open buildings that were homes only yesterday. Basements fill with wounded who know there may be no morphine, no evacuation, only the slow ticking of time under the rubble. The river, once a trade route, turns into a highway for death. Boats bringing in fresh troops and taking away far fewer. Then, one winter, the tide turns. Armies that had been retreating suddenly bite back, slamming shut a ring of steel and snow around an entire enemy force. Inside the pocket, food runs out, fuel runs out, hope runs out, long before orders from faraway headquarters finally allow the word no one wants to say: surrender. By the time the guns fall silent in 1945, the land between Berlin and Moscow is scarred beyond recognition. Cities are half ruins, half graveyards. Forests hide shallow pits where names and faces have already been forgotten, leaving only rusting helmets and bones. In many school books, this war is told as a clean story of good versus evil. But on this front, the liberator runs prison camps, and the civilizer runs extermination sites. Ordinary people are crushed either way. One dictator dies in a bunker. The other stands on a balcony calling himself victor. History remembers their speeches. The earth between them remembers something else. This was the Eastern Front, Hitler versus Stalin, the bloodiest front they don't teach you in school, and only the first chapter in the dark archive of what humans can do to each other when two tyrants go to war.